Aha. Sachin. Sachin, hello. Can you hear me?
Hey, Bob. Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. Thank you for helping out. All will become clear in the next couple of minutes.
Sure.
Let me try and find these other guys. Where are they?
Mark, you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Very good. Sachin, could you just check yourself?
Yeah, you two are golden. Let me just try and find where. I'm doing all this through Zoom, and I'm a bit new to Zoom, so I'm not always the best at organising it.
Yeah, Zoom is a little bit easier than anything else, Mark. That's what I see.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, Sam is coming, so we're good. We're good. That means it's worked. Sam, hello.
Hey, sorry about that, guys.
No. I'm new to Zoom, so I was figuring I must have done something wrong, but luckily I hadn't. So you had me double checking myself.
Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm going to introduce you to everyone in a moment, Sam. But we'll just wait for Jordan. He accepted, didn't he?
Yep, he did.
Yeah,
We're looking forward to working with you guys on this one. Really excited.
All right.
Sorry, this morning sucked, Mark. I had a debrief with Jordan about it. We were just trying to find the best solution, and hopefully this is it.
Right, I'm going to introduce you to Sachin and Venkatesh in a minute, and we'll help. We'll all do it together. But I've just grabbed them and only given them 2-minute brief, so I'll have to do that a bit as we're talking, right? But
sure,
we'll get there. We'll get there. It just feels like we should wait for Jordan, right? So hang on, and Sam, are you feeling positive as we start this meeting? Yeah.
I'm feeling positive. I want the best solution forward, and I would love to be able to help any way I can, give contacts, help with business process or this environment and where we often work here.
Yeah.
But it just really came very clear that this is not a ServiceNow project. It's just there's just too many things that it would require too much customization and too much change in architecture to even do it, and it still doesn't.
Too much effort to make the wrong tool do the job, where if we started from nothing, which we will do, it's not actually that complicated, but it's just...
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But it still goes back to your point, Mark, about business value and the value prop, and that's what Joe Barrow is really looking for. So,
right, and we're hoping that he's still involved in judging this thing, because it's not apparent in that.
I really don't think he will be. I think these guys got their own, they get yearly allotments of money.
Right. Here's Jordan. Right.
Yeah. And I think
right.
Hey, Jordan.
Yeah. So let's do some intros and bring Sachin and Venkatesh in, just so we start off properly. Right. I'll play host for a moment. Right. So look. Right. Sachin and Venkatesh. I've been working with Sam and Jordan. Sam for months, Jordan for weeks. We had this vision of what we're going to do for this community kind of portal for HP. And it was all going along nicely, and then it's changed a bit this week because we've got to ballpark some features and some technology into a portal, right? But I was chatting to Anshuman beforehand, and he's like, well, we can get some way towards that, and we just need to keep the ball moving because we've got 2 days to do some concept of ballpark. So this call is about explaining to you what we need to ballpark, right? And then Sam and Jordan, just to explain, so Venkatesh and Sachin work with me from our Pittsburgh office, and we do quite a lot of stuff on the innovation front together. Actually, quite a lot of stuff that takes less than 3 months, so we might be the best people for the job for ballparking here. And yeah, they're the best people to help us. So I figured, and we're going to all ask questions of each other. Shall I share that document that you sent of the features?
Please do, but while you're doing that, let me just introduce myself.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'm Jordan, and pleased to meet some fellow Nessians here. I've been working with the HP account for about as long as we've had it, for about 1.5 years now. So we've done some ServiceNow-based implementations, and I'm a process consultant. I don't get deep down into the technical configuration, but I'm responsible for articulating stories and things like that. So I'm part of this team, but I'm from the delivery side. primarily focused on IT service management, of which HP's RFP here is a partner-based model for delivering IT services around a certain type of copiers and printers that they call A3. It's a large format family of printers and copiers. So that's just a quick rundown, that I've got some experience with the account, as well as kind of what their service delivery sort of looks like. And I'm just trying to bring that kind of experience to bear on this.
And then just to add to Jordan's for other groups, that we reviewed this RFP in our understanding and our long experience as a ServiceNow, just looked at it and said, hey, this is not something that we should be building on ServiceNow. Yeah. And that's why we're having this call with you guys.
Yeah. Hey, and also we're saying Sachin and Venkatesh, Sam is an excellent experienced design like Brian and Anton, and he's pretty nifty at what he does. And we helped create a vision, which was a pretty good vision. Too detailed as it turned out, but I thought we were just going to reskin that and go from there, but this is different. So the conversation, I mean, Venkatesh and Sachin, you're still with us, aren't you? Just to check we haven't bored you to death so far. With
no, Mark. You're all
good. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen. There are these, I don't know where Jordan might do a better job than me of explaining these core features that they want this portal to do, and where we got to with our thinking. I mean, if I could maybe do 2 minutes on it, right? This portal for their partners, let's just say there's a few hundred partners, right? And it's all, let's just say nothing exists digitally at the moment, right? Lots of emails, phone calls, account managers and spreadsheets. And they're pretty clear. They're like, aha, we'll just digitize all of that, build an online portal, have those few hundred people get a login and set themselves up. The people themselves represent actual businesses who have services and they're in locations, right? So they upload a profile picture, a bit like if it was, a dating app or something. This is me, this is where I'm based, and these are my services. And then you can put me on a map. And that part, so far so good, right? Set up an account on a portal and show everyone on a map. That's like the basic. But then being able to search to find some of these services starts to make it more valuable, right? That you can, I'll do you the classic use case because it can't hurt, right? I'm this guy in Dallas and I've got a client in Dallas, and the client says, could you help me with my office in Atlanta? I don't have an office in Atlanta. If I go to this portal, find a trusted partner of HP in Atlanta and say to him, could you do this job for me? And I'll mark it up. Then I tell my guy in Dallas, he thinks I'm great. And suddenly me and my guy in Atlanta are partners and we can win some new business. So it's very, very loose on the concept of the value to the users, the partners, but that is the value proposition, right? They can find new capabilities in services and somehow build a partnership model with their partners. That's the hardest bit we're about to talk about, and use the portal to gain insight and information, all on a portal, right? And the problem statement we have is, can we ballpark some stuff that we could do for that in a few months to create a skinny version of what it could become, and we're going to now go through in this document. I'm going to walk through with the guys who know it as well as me, better than me, what those features might be. So we'll just give you some of these features and talk through, and we'll wind back from there and ask questions as we go.
Mark,
yeah, go on.
Mark, you need to share.
Do you think that
I'm about to, yeah.
Do you think that they'd have any interest in just seeing the prototype? Yes. Because it's
go
not what we're doing, but
go on. Sam, if you've got it to hand, I haven't been able to in the photographs.
Here I go real quick, guys. And this might help too. So let me just start here from the beginning. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So we put this together. This is not at all what we envisioned for the MVP or for this RFP right now. This was just blue sky, capturing what they were thinking. So a partner, as Mark was describing, would be able to sign in, and when they're landing on a homepage of some sort, they would be able to see all of their requests. Maybe somebody's asking them, like Mark said, somebody in Atlanta could be requesting their services there. If they're based in Texas, all of the open requests that are in their area, their invoices, and the ability to request services from somebody else. And so the main use case here is I am a provider or a partner, and I'm looking to get some help with an account. And so they would like you to be able to find that service, see a map. Each reticle here is a partner who provides a service within the area. It's actually geolocated. It's 50 miles from an area. Clicking on anywhere on the map would take them to that service or that provider. Here, if I clicked on Texas, I can see all the areas here for Houston. If I click on one of the areas, it would give me information about that provider with ratings, the ability to email them, call them, and then see a list of their services. And the services that a provider provides to an account, so an account individual at a company, whether it's an office building or hospital, these are typical IT managers who have an account with the provider, with the partner, saying, hey, I have all these HP services, HP applications, HP printers, and so on and so forth. I'm moving buildings. Could you help me out? And then they can work with this and see this list of services that are being offered, from basic device installations to floor devices and so on and so forth. And basically, you would be building a work order, and that work order gets added to a cart. That cart then allows you to see all the list of prices, the provider who's going to be doing that on your behalf that you're requesting them to do, hourly relate, all those things, and then placing the order. Placing the order then takes them to the work order being sent out. So if I'm getting help on an account and I'm talking to Mark, saying, hey, Mark, could you help me out? He's going to get an email or an SMS text message saying, hey, there's a new service request in your area, or someone's selecting you to help you out. Would you like to approve, deny, or review details? That's that whole discussion real quick about going through the statement of work and deciding whether or not we want to do this work or not. Seeing that, being able to approve it, deny it, make the rejections, and then going into the actual in progress, doing the work, and then doing the completion, and then doing the payment. So all of this is really summed up in a couple of documents that we had that had been shared with us that walks through a lot more of these use cases here. And this, what you see here visually, was all done on ServiceNow. So this is not at all what we were expecting to do now that it's not ServiceNow. So the UI and everything will look completely different. But the general gist is that you would go online, you would find providers, you'd look at a map, you'd see where the areas are, you would request that provider, you would see a list of their services, you could add it to your work order for that service, you could complete the work order, and then you're being able to work with that provider, find out if you approve or deny it, change details with that provider, and then once it's approved, it goes into the actual in progress stage, and then work is done, completed, and there's payment.
Right. Yeah. Take a breath, Sam. So, guys, just for your information, I realised I didn't even mean to, but I'm recording this, so I could send you this later. I mean, obviously, I have those files and that link. I'd say that was the kind of complete picture of what it could be. There's all sorts of details Sam put in the design. So now you're in your head of what it could be. Now let's move to this document we're actually talking about, which is features, which I think is probably a little bit less ambitious than that. But you've got a good flavour of what it could be. But now we're going to talk about the hard facts about what they've written down that they wanted.
Yep, and Mark, to that point, this is the last thing I'll show. Here it is, the really, really high 10,000 foot overview, right? Just back to what we were saying, onboarding, selecting a partner on a map, being able to review the contract, request service, they reject it or accept it, they perform the work, there's invoice, and then there's that partner pays. And that's what you're going to see next in the document that Mark's talking about. They pretty much broke it down by these areas.
Yeah.
And there's just functional areas. Okay, I'll stop sharing and take a breath.
Before we jump on to actual document, a couple of questions. So you showed me geospatial searches or geological searches that we probably may need to do. So let's say in one particular location, say Pittsburgh, there are multiple providers available, and but both of them do not have enough horsepower to say support that particular request that you're going to bring in. So for example, you want 100 printers. I'm just taking a hypothetical example, but let's say none of these two providers can supply you 100 printers at any point of time. So if you want to say divide that into multiple providers, is there any thing that we are going to think about at this point of time, or no?
Brilliant that you've got it, and that is something this platform should be capable of. But for the concept of this initial thing that really they want to try and get some people on board and familiar with, that feels like phase 3 or something, right? That's it really working like it should.
Okay.
But I think that's a use case beyond the starting point, which is, can I get 5 printers from one place? Yes.
Right.
Every time that gets more complicated, we're allowed to put that out of this first ballpark. But you've caught the essence of it perfectly, Sachin.
Okay.
Let's show this document and see how we go on explaining it, because this is now what we're trying to tackle, and we've only just started today talking about it. So hang on, let me share.
Sure.
This one, I think. Right. Jordan, you know this better than me. Sorry. Do you think just diving straight in and explaining this matrix is the right way to do it?
Yes, because this is the way we need to organize all of our response. They have these little tables of 5 to 7 statements of functionality, and they're broken up according to the major conceptual sections of a solution. So the first part is how partners get onboarded into the tool, which is basically getting them eligible to participate. And there are a few major requirements within that. We'd like to talk about an approach to building a set of tables, probably database tables, that would represent partners and certain certification and compliance activities that they need to go through to demonstrate that they are able to provide services on certain types of products, for instance. And HP maintains all of that information. We just have to have a place to house it, and then have a way for them to basically record their compliance status, et cetera. And then a partner management oversight function would be able to view all of that stuff. That's really a summary of what's in this onboarding section of it.
Hey,
and of course, it's all portal enabled.
Yeah, Jordan, let's take a moment as well, which goes like this, guys. So, Jordan, you're the person here, I think, that knows the most about the ongoing work that Linium's doing with HP, right? Olympia and all that. So you know quite a lot about HP, definitely more than me. But here we're talking about, I've been describing, I think it's cloud-based application portal that we need to build. And I think they're looking for a technology and architectural recommendation, right?
Yes.
They're not wedded to, what I mean, are they, .NET, Java, they have leanings, do they, in their?
I don't think they care so much about the language it's written in, because I don't think they would assume they would be supporting this application themselves.
Yeah.
I do think there's a couple of points that would be in our favor. For instance, if this is hosted at AWS or Azure, they're already deeply embedded, and like so many other companies, they've got an established footprint there. So I would think that that's the pathway we would want to pursue. And then if we want to talk about what type of database it would be and what type of security would be feasible in there, and then kind of what our web layer or presentation layer would look like, to me, that's enough for the architecture to pass muster.
Right. Is this all helping, Sachin, a little bit of just the breadth of this?
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you this. I mean, the portal itself, if you think in terms of implementation, will have quite a few things to implement, even for MVP that we are going to bring in. So what this is where my mind is going at this point of time. So let's say if we have any functionality or any module that is that is already there in ServiceNow, which we can leverage and do some sort of integration with some of the technology or some of the architecture that we are going to bring in. So for example, this vendor management, right? if I'm not wrong, this vendor management approval, this workflow can happen in ServiceNow. And if we write some sort of integration or API in front of ServiceNow, that would just say that this particular user or this particular partner is been approved or not. I think we would be done with big chunk of work if I'm not wrong. With this particular screen, at least what you are projecting at this point of time.
Well, it's a possibility, but one reason that we've veered away from using the idea of ServiceNow's development platform is there's licensing impacts to it.
Okay.
Now, if there's a limited number of HP badged users who would be on the back end of this to administer it, that's not too hard to justify using ServiceNow because they already have a fairly decent license arrangement with them. What we can't do is have the partners themselves access any aspect of the ServiceNow tool, because then they would invoke a cost that just wouldn't
that's
be
perfectly
supported.
fine. Yeah. So what I'm thinking at this point of time is we will not let any partner to hit ServiceNow directly. What I'm thinking is maybe now we are talking about some cloud technologies. I would prefer to go some AWS Lambda that would have integration with ServiceNow platform, and will expose some API endpoints that would let you manage the vendor flow in ServiceNow, but for actual end user, it would just appear as if it's coming from AWS based Lambda. That's what I'm thinking at this point of time.
Is the premise here, Sachin, that, and this is why I'm asking you, Jordan, that these vendors exist already in ServiceNow from the other stuff you're doing, or could be put in there?
And it's a really good point, because we had even put in here in the very first one, or this table for partners could leverage one of the existing tables that describes partners in what's called the Olympia project. That's a ServiceNow-based project. So I like where you're going on that for the vendor management aspect. You can't do that for the case management part. So
that's okay.
Rapidly get outside of what you could do within ServiceNow, because at that point the partners themselves would have to be involved.
Yeah, so think of user vendor management as if some sort of user management that you kind of outsource to technologies like Cognito or something in AWS. Instead of that, vendor management we will outsource to ServiceNow. We don't have to reinvent that whole wheel that you have already figured out and have already established that whole process. So we don't have to redo that in your custom code.
Right.
Good point.
Let's park that then and move on, shall we?
Yeah.
But and also, as we build this kind of, it can't be more than ballpark in 2 days, Sachin.
Yeah.
Few hundred vendors onboarding, and this is a description of them when we send it to you. We're going to have to use some of our experience in doing this for other places to come up with a logical something, right?
Yep.
Because we're not going to get a chance to thoroughly investigate how we do it in this case, and we're going to have to build some time in at start to validate that. But anyway, you know the story. We're going to have to ballpark it with experience. I suppose that is a ballpark anyway, isn't it? Right, I'm going to move on from onboarding. So that's one bucket of stuff, which we'll send this to you. I mean, I might have sent already to try and learn a bit better, right? Now then, program function, create and manage service and pricing schedule. And I'll be honest, our competitors here, Sachin, have potentially an off-the-shelf solution for getting services, which may or may not work, but the guy that wrote it definitely thought he was getting something off the shelf. So he's used words that are, oh, you can probably do this already, right? Whereas obviously we're going to be creating something. But anyway, sorry, Jordan, can you maybe explain this bucket?
Right. This is an area where, unlike the type of connectivity to, say, a partner file or compliance file housed in ServiceNow, it wouldn't make sense, because this equivalent table or schedule of pricing is totally new. It would not be produced in ServiceNow, again, because the partners need to manipulate it. So here we're talking about having to have a database in the AWS layer, basically, that would track this type of information, because then all the partners, as well as HP partner management, could have access to that data without incurring the extra licensing.
Right.
And then
And
the functionality is described here in very, very kind of high-level language, just not presuming any particular way of executing it. But basically, what they're all collaborating on here is each partner and perhaps their point of contact within HP is collaborating to take a standard um, table of services, not a very big one. It might have 24 specified catalog items in it, like install a desktop printer, and that is worth this much, and there's a description of how long it takes, and that sort of thing. Think of 24 things like that that are in this initial, very simple schedule of services. They then check off which ones they're going to subscribe to be able to perform, because there's certain ones that are optional, and then they put in what their pricing is going to be. So
Right.
that's what the partner's copy of that table would look like. So you can think of this being a database with many copies of the schedule with individual partner specifics on the partner's own version within that table. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does.
so,
So for now, can you? I mean, is it possible for you or Sam maybe to share some sort of sample data how this schedule will look like in terms of what I'm thinking is if you can jot down some list of fields, for example, what that schedule will have. Like definitely, what I see is it will have some sort of date and time for sure, some sort of description, but along with that, do you foresee any field that we should consider, so that while designing the database, we will be able to take that into consideration? Like
I
I
think
don't know
Sam
what.
has that. I think we have an image of that, don't we, Sam?
You mean the list of services?
yeah, I
Correct.
think didn't we take a screenshot from their demo?
I do. I will gladly. Would you like me to share that? How would you guys like to see that now? You want me to send your email?
If you can share that via email, that would be nice, because
I
I
will
kind of need to jump into another call in like next few minutes. So
Oh, wow.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I will send this to your email.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yep, that would help.
Venkatesh, can you stay with us a bit?
Yes, Mark, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we got the gist of that one then. Let's move on again. So that was,
Setting up the schedule of services.
yeah, just for my information, I had my, what's it called? Service catalog. And each service has a price. That's what this is, right? It's like, yes, it's that.
Right. The only reason we're not using the term service catalog here is because we're not thinking of using ServiceNow's
Right.
service catalog for
Yeah,
it.
You've conditioned me to think of it that way, even though I've been listening. Right. Okay. All right. And then this was next, find and select a partner. So this, what are my search criteria kind of thing, isn't it? It was geography and capability and price, maybe. That
Yeah,
kind of
there's a notion of kind of a selling partner who needs support from a supporting partner, perhaps in another city. And so we have to take it from those two personas' point of view. But the first one is something where a selling partner has sold a project or is thinking of selling a project to support a hospital, right? And they're opening a new wing, and they're going to be doing a lot of installs of all sorts of technology, but this provider is basically a reseller for ServiceNow, or I'm sorry, for HP, sorry. So they're going to supply the product, and they're going to supply the labor to actually install and test everything. The problem is that they're selling outside their region, and they're going to search for a partner in that other city who can take this on for them as a subcontractor. So that's what the first thing is being able to load in that type of a project, larger type of opportunity. And then there's other types of kind of spot services, like there's a printer that's broken out there and somebody needs to get there in the next 2 hours, but it's 200 miles away. So they may have opened up a standing order for services in that city with this supporting partner. This is just getting at how you would establish those types of master service agreements and stuff inside the tool. Again, not an area where we can think of using ServiceNow to support that.
And you're already just in the I started off saying, this all sounds fine so far, right? The find a partner who could do the job. But as soon as you start describing the nuances of the flavors of the job or what's special about this particular one, that feels like beyond the first phase, doesn't it? You know, the rudimentary, yes, I can do that job. But as soon as you start messing with the negotiating, basically, I'm not sure yet how you would do that.
Yeah, but I just don't think it would have any interest to the partners if there's no way for them to actually strike an agreement with a supporting partner. Otherwise, it's just kind of like, okay, I can find where they are, but then I have to pick up the phone.
But right. But it's still worth us keeping this conversation going to say we could do all of it in 6 weeks, except for the crazy complexity of that, which we might be able to do in another 10 weeks. We just don't know yet. And we can't quite, these are the questions we need to answer to figure that out almost, you know? So
yeah, I would submit, though, that the first row on that, which was the only thing I was describing, the ability to define a table to represent a project or an opportunity, and we could copy that design straight out of various different tools, including ServiceNow. It's just that it can't be housed in ServiceNow.
Yeah. Okay. So, Venkatesh, we'll keep going. I say I'm recording this. Hopefully we'll finish in 15 minutes. We've got this document and the recording that we can get Sachin back in for that last part, right?
Sure, Mark. Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. So that was.
Sachin is going to be out till next 30 minutes because, as I mentioned, right?
That's fine. But we're going to finish. Let's keep going and finish it. And I say because I'm recording it, he can catch it.
Right.
All right. So there you go. We're going to find and search. We got that part. Selecting and but then we get to this part, so let's actually talk this through because this is the bit I want Sachin to hear properly. Though this to me is the, well, maybe not the accepting part, the managing part. One bit of this is harder than the others, isn't it? Are you with me?
I think where you were on the secure project acceptance may cover this, but if it's not that, it's the table before it. It was just at the latter part of that table. But the notion there is, and it's shown on some of Sam's storyboard slides as well, is that when you go out there to the folks in Pittsburgh, and you might send this opportunity to 3 eligible partners out there to get bids from them, they have the opportunity to either accept the work on a preliminary basis and then get into negotiation with you, or reject it, say, I can't do this or I won't do this. But at any rate, there's that notion of sending something to them as a request and then getting a response back and being able to track the status of that till the point where it either gets finalized or rejected or canceled. So it's very much like a service request.
Hang on a moment. So what you just described sounds like the demo that we did, right? It has the concept of bidding, but then I don't believe it. I mean, I have to go back to the RFP we got. It doesn't get into that level of detail, does it, about bidding? A quick way around this would be first come, first served kind of thing, wouldn't it, in the initial phase?
Well, yeah, but it just says right there at the top of the screen, partners who receive incoming requests can submit preliminary approval or tentative interest, right? And then it talks about somewhere in here that you can attach documents to it. You can go back and forth with some sort of work notes type of functionality until you've agreed on, okay, here's what's going to be in our statement of work for this project, or this, like I say, standing order. I think that's a very important one, because if you don't have an existing partner relationship out there, you're not going to be able to call on them when there's an emergency printer failure, right, in that other city. You have to have like a long-standing agreement that says, hey, for the rest of this year, here's my standard pricing that I can just call you and you're going to respond within 2 hours to somebody at that hospital to fix their printer for me. So that's another type of thing that we're tendering through this marketplace.
Ooh. Hang on, let me just trying to make it easy in the first phase. It is possible, right? Partners receive the request, but the first person to accept it becomes invisible to everyone else before it gets put back on the market. Something like that, right?
Oh yeah, that definitely is important to note as a feature for sure. Because if we don't, HP certainly will.
We don't just exclude it from the start, right? It's not that we can't do it, of course, but we might need more than one day to talk about it internally to get it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's that part which makes it a bit easier. you know, it's in the shop window and then it's not in the shop window until it goes back in the shop window because of stuff, once again, which we're going to have to define, which is that contract negotiation, which might be off platform for the first phase or not, but we'll get into that. Go back to your standing order thing. So once one person does one bit of work for me the first time, are you saying we have to enter into an annual agreement that we're suddenly partners? It's more than doing this job for me once to see if I like you or not.
Oh, you could definitely have that kind of episodic model. I'm just saying from my experience with these service providers, they're not just sitting there waiting by the phone for somebody they don't have an agreement with to say, could you go out and fix this? Could you roll your truck?
but do you go back to how we should be doing this, not how we're going to write it up in the next day? We should meet 3 or 4 of those different providers to hear their take on that very thing, right? And get a flavor of the variety and design the right solution for it.
Right.
That's what we should do. So if we can't speak to them in this quote, we got to say we'll do that at some later phase, and we're going to go for a vanilla useful something that's easy because we need to talk to them.
Okay, so then you are basically reducing it down to, well, if it's not a project, that it might be an individual service call at the lowest level of granularity, just a service call. Let's forget about the overarching agreement. Let's say they do that outside this marketplace. I'm just still arguing it's going to have to be there from a business perspective. It might not have to be in the solution right off the bat.
Yes.
And all they're doing is basically sending out to somebody, can you go get in your truck and fix this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Because we cannot possibly quote on the complexity of all the flavors of that for this solution because we haven't spoken to anyone.
Right.
Right. So that becomes an assumption or a caveat, doesn't it? Or something right. Okay. I think that was a good exchange.
But before we get off this page, that whole bit about haggling and negotiating, it's that third row at the bottom of the table.
Right.
That's what they're expecting, is this back and forth.
Right. And I told you so we should highlight that. That's a big, I'm hoping before this call that's happening tomorrow, the guys can help me flag the 3 or 4 things that are like, what do we do? Because you insist on it, and yet it's so complicated to describe it and quote on it. Maybe not to do it, but excuse me. So I'll tell you this. I've done a proposal for a trading platform between bonds, right? A buyer and a seller. They want to get rid of the intermediary. It's great. It should happen. It could be on blockchain. Who knows? And as well as getting rid of the investment bank in the middle, because they're just sucking money off this deal and getting in the way, there's a legal exchange. We agree the price. And as soon as I started talking about how it works with the lawyer and the contract to buy quite a simple bond, there could be 10 or 12 little exchanges and markups by each other's lawyers before they agree. And that currently happens by email, fax, all kinds of scrawly, horrible stuff. And the deal takes, an hour to establish, but 6 weeks to execute because of these lawyers. But our proof of concept had to say, take it off the platform, because it could be 60% of the work on the platform to allow the lawyers to update digitally, and yet it's not the concept of what the MVP, the POC, the prototype is. Sorry to use those words. Do you know what I mean? This feels a bit like that, doesn't it? Complex.
On the other hand, I would counter with saying that if we look at what's in our column there, this is how we've kind of simplified that statement. You're right. There's a whole lot of devil details behind that would not be part of our proposal, but it's certainly simple enough to envision while an order is in a pending status, you can put attachments and notes into it. As long as we allow for that, we haven't really said, is that going to be an efficient mechanism? And it's certainly not automated in any way, but at least that it would have that capability. So you have, almost the equivalent of a SharePoint site or something, but we're not building SharePoint.
Right. So I was going to say, is that kind of a file store or FTP or some old school like that? But equally, we could deploy maybe in the interim, a Slack or some sort of modern text sharing with document solution to have an audit trail, right?
Fine. Yeah. And if that's a good way to attack that particular kind of thing, and it is integrated, because think of this, I'm coming to the portal, I want to locate this specific case that's been tendered to me, and I want to see the latest back and forth on it. I would expect to see it kind of inside the frame of that case.
That I could see by date order as the latest document, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But all of that, how do we do document management and all of that for the latest versions? Is this row, isn't it? Really? And
right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've recorded our best bit of conversation on that. So thanks for that. Yeah, we can decide. All right. Yeah, the guys can read your reds column here a bit later because there you put electronic signature, not the MVP. We'll go with lots of your logic in this red column because we don't know better than you, kind of thing. So we'll move on from that. And then submit and track a case. Is this worth explaining more than what we just did, or it's
the only thing I want to point out is I had introduced that concept of a standing order in that very first one, so we would probably disregard that. So if you want to redline that out or just strike that out, the part about opening a case against an existing MSA or something, we're not putting that
sounds quite complex for now as a new concept, which we'd like to flesh out and stumble upon in our actual paid discover to find this, right? The fact that you came out with it early. Where is it to put a red line through?
It's in the next table, the one about case management, and it's the first row.
Right, okay.
It says 2 functions there.
Yeah.
So I would say.
All right, we've recorded what you're saying. That's like an ongoing relationship, which we don't necessarily have to build into this first phase, all right? Right, I don't know how to do that. It's all grayed out. I don't know why. Okay, but I've got it. I'll find that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Once we've established the documents are here, this is a little bit more of managing them, right? Or putting them in order.
A lot of this is just statuses. So if you think of any ticketing system or something, you're not trying to produce the full flavor of a ticketing system.
Yeah.
But you're trying to do some of the essentials. You have a task and you have to track: has it been tendered? Has it been acknowledged or accepted? Is it in progress? Was it successfully completed?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm flicking down the bottom of that one.
And there are some here that are grayed out to be excluded from phase 1, but we do need to be thinking ahead to phase 2 and how we would do them there.
But ultimately, I'm still thinking ahead to Friday when we try and write some ballpark that's winning enough, yet still has in it a flavour of a couple of weeks to actually do the requirements properly.
Right.
It gives us control about what's in phase 2, but mindful that these are probably good ideas, but just somehow seize ownership of it, that it's on our terms and we'll do it the right way, kind of thing, right? Somewhere along, in some fancy words we'll have to write. Okay. And then, all right, this admin sponsor is a little bit on reporting and what's going on and how many, data reporting.
Kind of left to your imagination. I did not put all my comments in there.
So I think we should stop before this gets too long and cumbersome, right? Let's break our call. I'll do this recording. I'll send this document and the recording to Venkatesh and Sachin. And then I'm going to catch up with them in a couple of hours when they've had a chance to digest and update you all in the next few hours of some skeleton, something about what we can promise, with a deadline in my mind of that call there is tomorrow, right? Of where we're heading and what we might like to ask.
Right. We have that half-hour Q&A with them. By the way, that overlaps with another client commitment I have. So I'm asking you perhaps to work with Sam on our questions that we would have to supplement yours. We're only going to get 3 questions probably because it's only a half hour. But I put some boldface in here with some specific questions that I had as I was producing these notes.
Right. But it's with the guys that wrote the RFP, isn't it? Rather than the bigger picture guys.
I think so.
Oh, it's getting complicated. We're like a spy with multiple identities, aren't we? Having to not spill the beans to the wrong person. Okay. Yes. Okay. That's it. So thank you, Sam and Jordan, for explaining to our side. Let me get back to our side and try and answer whatever questions I can and tackle. We're doing this on the fly, as you can tell by the way I'm talking.
No.
What we do next, or where we go with this, because it's all it's a breaking news story, is what I think it is, isn't it? So, and then yes, we'll not even think about how we're going to price or ballpark it yet. Let's just get our minds around what it is and how we then might do that, right? Before we come to their format, right?
Correct. And each one of these rows corresponds to one of those table segments.
Right. But each one, of course, is ideally able to price if you have a solution already, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Don't get to ask questions and meet people and do it properly. Right. I got it. Okay. I'm going to stop. Let's break the call, get my recording out, and we might, I might drop you a few questions a bit later, chaps, but otherwise look out for an update from us at the end of the day in the Eastern time, right?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Sam, save me a bit of a moment. Send me that link to the Envision, will you? I have it, but it'd be great if it's the one you know is the latest, right?
Yes, I sent it to you, and along with all the screenshots too.
Yeah. Smashing. Thank you. Speak soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Yes,
Speak soon. Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Tim.